Los Angeles. Just the name conjures up these images, right? Sunlight, celebrities, endless opportunity. It's the city where dreams are supposed to come true. But what if that entire dream was built on a nightmare? What if the city's most iconic features are actually monuments to its darkest secrets?
When you think of LA, this is probably what you picture. The Hollywood sign, the glamour, the promise of a golden life right on the Pacific coast. I mean, it's the image they sell to the world, a carefully crafted fantasy that pulls in millions of people every single year.
But if you actually live there, you know there's another reality. A city of soul-crushing traffic, staggering inequality, and the ghosts of communities that were just paved over and forgotten. That dream can feel pretty far away when you're stuck in traffic on the 405. So how did these two versions of the same city get so far apart?
To answer that, we have to look past all the glitz and glamour. The story of modern Los Angeles, well, it isn't one of accidental growth. It's a story of ruthless ambition and cold, calculated decisions that had absolutely devastating consequences.
You see, the city's biggest problems today, the sprawl, the inequality, the housing crisis, these aren't new. They are the direct result of a series of historical sins, deliberate acts that built a paradise for some by destroying the lives of others. And it all started with a desperate need for one thing:
water. Simple as that. You can't build a massive city in the middle of a desert without it. And the story of how LA got its water, well, it's like the city's original sin. A tale of deception that really set the template for everything that came after.
So back in the early 1900s, city leaders, led by a guy named William Mulholland, looked about 200 miles north to this fertile place called the Owens Valley. As one historian put it, they got the water rights through pure deception, turning a thriving farming community into a desert, all to fuel LA's growth. This conflict, they call it the California Water Wars, got so bitter that local farmers literally started dynamiting the aqueduct, but LA's victory would soon lead to a complete catastrophe.
That's the estimated number of people who died in 1928 when the St. Francis Dam, a part of Mulholland's aqueduct system, just collapsed. It was one of the worst civil engineering disasters in American history. It created a 2-mile-wide, 70-mile-long path of destruction that wiped out entire towns, many of them filled with migrant farm workers. Mulholland took responsibility, but he was never charged with a crime.
In fact, this whole story of corruption and stolen water was so cinematic, so noir, that it became the plot for one of the greatest movies ever made, Chinatown. It's a crazy reminder that LA's dark fictional stories are often rooted in truths that are even darker.
So with a stolen water supply, the city could finally grow. But how were people gonna get around? LA is infamous for its freeways, right? But was it always meant to be a city of cars? The answer might surprise you. It's a hard no.
It's honestly hard to imagine now, but LA wasn't always a city built for cars. Before the freeways, it had the Pacific Electric Railway, the largest electric railway system in the entire world. It connected dozens of communities all across Southern California. But it was systematically torn apart, all for a new vision. One that put the private car first, encouraged white flight to the suburbs, and literally divided the city along class and racial lines.
And this wasn't some accident. It was a plan. You can see blueprints from as early as 1939 that lay out this massive parkway system. And this vision was pushed hard by the auto industry, who, according to some reports, saw public transit as a direct competitor. You know the plot of the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where the villain buys and dismantles the trolley system to force everyone onto his new freeways? It's a surprisingly accurate metaphor for what really happened.
And that leads to the crucial question. Freeways need a massive amount of land. So where does that land come from? The answer reveals another one of the city's darkest chapters: displacement. And nowhere is this story of displacement clearer than in the hills of Chavez Ravine. Before it was home to Dodger Stadium, it was this vibrant, multi-generational Mexican-American community. 3 distinct neighborhoods, Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop, where over 1,000 families owned their own homes, built their own lives, and were, by all accounts, totally self-sufficient.
The betrayal unfolded over a full decade. First, the city just declared their community a blighted area so it could seize the land for a public housing project. Then, after most families had sold their homes under pressure, the housing project was just canceled. The city held on to the now empty land for years, only to basically give it away to a private baseball team. The final, brutal evictions of the families who held out were broadcast on live TV, a public spectacle of displacement.
This quote from a resident fighting that eviction, it says it all. These were American families. They sent their sons to war, they built their community from the ground up, they believed in the American dream, only to have that dream bulldozed in the name of progress.
Okay, so now you have a city built on stolen water, divided by freeways. How do you police it? In the late 1990s, the Rampart scandal exposed a level of corruption inside the LAPD that was just staggering, and it showed how power was being abused in the very communities the freeways had cut off.
The whole scandal centered on this elite anti-gang unit called Crash, where misconduct was reportedly just out of control. We're talking planting evidence, perjury, even bank robberies and drug dealing. More than 70 officers were implicated. This was not a few bad apples. It was a systemic rot.
But what does that kind of corruption actually mean for people on the street? It means this. As a direct result of the lies and fake evidence from these officers, over 100 wrongful criminal convictions had to be overturned. Can you imagine being sent to prison based on a complete lie told by the people sworn to protect you?
The financial hit to the city was insane. Taxpayers were on the hook for an estimated $125 million in civil settlements paid out to the victims of this corruption. It was one of the most widespread and expensive police scandals in American history.
Stolen water, divided freeways, erased communities, a corrupt police force. These aren't just stories from the past. They are the unpaid debts that define Los Angeles today.
When you see the homelessness crisis in LA, it's impossible not to connect it back to this history. The destruction of affordable, stable communities like Chavez Ravine, combined with big economic shifts, created a crisis that began decades ago. The US government named LA the homeless capital of America all the way back in 1984, and those deep, structural problems have only gotten worse.
And this is maybe the most powerful symbol of LA's history. A living, breathing community was bulldozed, and what sits there now is a sea of asphalt. It's a perfect metaphor for the city's entire story, a dream for some, built on top of a nightmare for others.
And this brings us to the final, unavoidable question. The very DNA of Los Angeles is rooted in conflict and conquest, over water, over land, and over people. Understanding this history isn't about condemning the city. It's about recognizing the deep-seated challenges it still faces. Can a city built this way ever truly overcome its founding sins? That right there remains LA's unanswered question.